Hi and good morning to this walk and talk. Today we're going to talk about the role of Bitcoin and especially about the role of Bitcoin in times of crisis. You probably have noticed that the world is quite turbulent at the moment. We have a lot of conflict. If this is in the Ukraine and Russia, or if this is now recently in the Iran-Israel conflict, we have got a lot of troubles going on. And this is very important for actually the role of Bitcoin. Why is that? So just imagine you're living in one of these countries and there's not much choice what you can actually do. If you have a family, you probably want to leave these countries. And then it really depends that you are owning or you invested in the right kind of assets. Let's be honest, how much value does real estate have in these countries at the moment? How would you go about selling your house in one of these areas that are in a war now? It's not possible. Somebody will just take it from you. If you leave it behind and you come back some years later, it's probably not yours anymore. And there's not anything you can do against that. That is just how it goes, basically. Let's say you have some gold, you have managed to get 5 kilos of gold over generations or something like that. So now you have your gold probably in some safe somewhere. And how do you want to take this over the border? There is no chance that you are able to get this over the border. I even know a personal story of a friend of mine where his grandparents had to flee. I don't know what it was. I think it was Syria. And they had actually been in the gold business and became wealthy with gold. So naturally, they had a lot of gold stored. And they tried to take the gold with them to the new country when they had to flee. They went actually to the US, but they had to actually give all their gold to the border patrol. They could not take any gram of gold to this new country. And they arrived basically poor because they have invested, so to say, in the wrong asset. Well, at this time, you can't really blame them because if you have understood how money works, basically, at this time, it was one of the only ways, or I would say maybe the only way to protect your money. We already had inflation back then in these times, but there was no alternative to store your money. And the alternative actually just developed in 2008 in the last financial crisis. You probably know this. This was actually the birth year of Bitcoin, when Bitcoin was developed. And there's rumors that it was developed because of this crisis. So the main role of Bitcoin is basically to protect you against this things going on. So this inflation, this problem that if you have to move location, that you cannot take any wealth with you. Now we have this all solved. And I can't really get the point why we are arguing between gold and Bitcoin so much, because it is both very good. But in a new digital world, when we have conflicts rising up like this, where it's very likely that you need to leave your home country, there's no question for me what is the better asset. Gold, like discussed, it's almost impossible to move. Yes, some of you may say, yeah, I have my gold in a Swiss vault or in a Singaporean vault or wherever. So what you're basically doing is you're giving away your asset. The only way that you can really own your own gold is to have it at home in a vault. But this is also not recommendable, right? If you have too much gold, you are at risk that somebody will break in and so on. So it's not that easy like it sounds. But if you have it in a vault somewhere in a country where you might think it's safe, even you split it up, it's still the risk that something will happen to it. Just imagine you have your gold in one of these countries and the conflict actually breaks out in one of these countries. What will the government then do? It will just take your gold, or even the security personnel of these vaults will probably go in if they need something and take it out themselves. This is just human, I would say. So this is very important to understand, that you're actually not really safe in having your gold in one of these vaults. And the main criteria for me is really the freedom of movement. It's even hard to travel around with more than $10,000 or euros in value, because you need to declare it. And in most of the countries, it's even per family. The only way you can actually move around a little more value would be if you have a boat. And let's say you cross the Atlantic and you have some gold or silver with you in the boat. You need to basically hide it in the boat, because otherwise you need to declare it and stuff like that. So this would be a way. So now we had this breakout just some days ago, the new breakout between Israel and Iran. And why did actually the Bitcoin price go down then? It did not go down very much. I think it went from 105, 106 to 103 or 102, something like that. Why is that? So a lot of people say, yeah, you see, it's not a store of value. It's not actually protecting me. It's not protecting my assets because it went down. You have to consider that this is actually happening, like most of the time, on a weekend. And what that means is that the investors just have access to the crypto assets, because the markets are closed on the weekend. So it's not possible to sell your oil position, to sell your Tesla position, to sell any other assets on the weekend. This is why we oftentimes actually see a pretty big movement in the crypto market if something in the market is happening, because it's the only way for an investor to react to what is happening. This will change over the next months, I assume, because most of the assets will move online. We slowly see exchanges like Bybit now bringing stocks online. So to my knowledge, on Bybit, you can already trade most of the stocks. They have just tokenized the stocks. And this will be the future of the stock market, if there is any future for the stock market. If you have watched my latest videos about the great taking, if you're a stock investor, you should look into it, because basically your stocks are not yours. You are just the beneficiary owner. You're not the real owner of your stocks. I don't want to talk about this topic too much, but if you're interested in that, if you're holding stocks and you think you have a safe investment, please do me a favor and search for the great taking. And you will find quite a lot of interviews with quite well-known people discussing the topic and why this is such a big problem and what you can do against it. So the stock market will move on chain as well. Solana is very focused on trying to help the stock market platforms to move on chain, as they are very fast and they are also quite connected to the trading industry with their venture partners. This will, so to say, change when every asset is tradable 24/7. So this argument is not really valued for me. And actually, I'm quite surprised that we are so stable. So it seems the market is not really pricing in a longer period of heavy escalation. The market is normally looking forward. That means if the market would expect the war escalating really heavily or taking for much longer time, it would actually be that the market will go down very much. At the moment, we still see some even altcoins shooting up. So this is quite a positive indicator that there will be some peace talk or some other solution very soon. So in my opinion, I think Bitcoin is still a good store of value. And I don't know a better store of value, to be honest, at the moment. If you have any idea of a better store of value, put it in the comments. I don't know what that should be. If you have real estate, yes, nice. You are basically, what can you have in real estate? You can have your own house. Basically, you can live in your own house, and you should do this if this was always your dream that you own something yourself. But be careful. It's actually not an asset, it's a liability. If you have ever owned a house, like the first years, it's maybe nice. Then this starts to break down, that starts to break down. Then, the government comes and says, oh, we have to raise property tax. Yeah, before you paid like 1,000 a year. Now, oh, why don't we do just 10,000? Well, let's try 10,000. So you're paying 10,000 in property tax. So is this really your property then? I mean, that's a joke, no? You see it in the States. I have a lot of friends in the States. If I talk to them, I'm very surprised about their property taxes. And I say to them, why do you own the house? I would pay rent for my own house. They just call it property tax. Then in Florida, they have this crazy thing where they need to have this very expensive hurricane insurance because otherwise they're not able to sell their house, or I don't know, the value of the house is very low then, and all this crazy stuff. So if you think this is a store of value, I don't know. So for me, it's not. You can make it a valuable asset if you really know how to invest in properties, what properties to buy, how to scale them up, and so on. But again, this is a very big risk. If you look at the demographics, and this is also playing into the cards of Bitcoin, let's look at the demographics. You probably know that we have actually in every country in the world a big problem, at least in every Western country in the world, and also in most of the Asian countries. We have a lot of problem with our demographic, meaning that we don't have enough young people. This has multiple problems with it. First of all, the main problem that we have in the moment is we have so many old people, and we have a lot of old people getting basically disabled or needing a care home. These percentages are rising up. You can come up with an idea yourself why that is, maybe if you look what happened in the latest years, but this is happening now. And also we have so many old people and so few young people. Especially in the West, our social system is structured in a way that the young people need to pay actually for the older people. And this can't actually function if you have too many old people and not a lot of young people. The system cannot work anymore. So this system will basically break. This leads us to the conclusion that it is very hard actually also to invest in real estate. In real estate, it's also demand, the demand and the supply. And what happens if a lot of people die, a lot of old people die? It's very logical that basically we will have too much demand. So the real estate investment, I don't know if this is a good choice. What else we have? We have cash. You think, okay, I have my cash in the bank and I get 5%. Wow, that's great. 5%. You know that the actual inflation rate is around 14% somewhere. So what you're doing, actually, you're burning your money. It was a good idea maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago to save some fiat money, so some dollars, some euros, and so on. But these days, I don't think it's a too clever idea. I don't think you can really do something with this asset. In some years, it will have the same numbers on it. What I mean by that, 1,000 euros will still be 1,000 euros or $1,000, but the buying power of this 1,000 euros in 10 years are around, what do you guess? Zero. Yeah, zero. So it is quite complicated what you could pick. Stocks we already talked about. Just one more fact is that if you're investing in the S&P at the moment, you're almost, or you're breaking even basically. That means that the inflation rate, like discussed, is around 14%. If you invest in the S&P 500, you make around 14% a year. So you're basically not losing any money, but you're also not gaining any money. With the Nasdaq, you make a little money, but on average with Bitcoin, you make about 60% a year. I did this calculation already in one of my other videos. So what is the alternative? To make even more money, yes, you can sometimes switch into some altcoins, meaning you could go into a hot narrative, you could go into a new layer one. Like at the moment, it's possible to take a little of your assets and go into Solana or Ethereum again, wait for some months. You have to understand the market cycle as we discuss very often. If you know that the market cycle is not over, if you're monitoring M2 money supply, if you're watching the RSI levels, and if you have a good feeling, a good indication of the market, you understand the narrative, then you can do this. You can also get into the hot narrative place, which would be like the AI play, or you go into the infrastructure layer, what is needed for AI. That would be data centers, decentralized data centers, file storages, GPU power, and so on. So go into that narratives, or go into the next one, which will be real world assets. Everything will be tokenized, so you need to find the next hot thing, the next platform, which is used to tokenize all the asset, or the new project which is actually leading in this, or upcoming startup with a great idea, maybe some connection between AI and real world assets. Also a new, or not a new, a narrative that should have exploded very long time ago is actually the gaming industry. We're still waiting for the gaming industry to explode. I think I have invested in the industry 3 years ago, and I'm still waiting for the industry to explode. Probably most of the tokens will not do anything anymore, but there are projects that are really taking traction. So they are implemented in a lot of games. There's tokens that are overall actually used in a lot of games, so you can exchange your assets between games, which is actually the key for gaming. Just imagine you are in a game and you have acquired, you have bought, or you have managed to play so many hours that you get some kind of reward, some kind of asset. If you have the chance to bring this asset to other games, of course, it will not work between every game, but just imagine your asset has a value then. So first of all, you can take it to other locations. Second of all, it can build up value, even in the way that some very influential YouTuber or whatever used to have this character. If he played with this character, for some people, it's probably worth more. And this will be actually in the track record of this asset, and then the value will go up, and the new holder will be able to profit from that. So even all the assets in the games, you are able actually to hold and trade. So this is one more thing that you could go into. The main important thing is that you should really store your value, your wealth in Bitcoin. Probably you should not store all of that in Bitcoin. You should still have enough money to, go through daily life. This is one of the most important lessons I would tell you. If you have a job, if you have an income, the main important thing, if you have some crypto on the side, is not to buy every day or every month or every week. This is also very important. But the main important thing is that you manage that you don't have to touch your crypto. So if you have a certain amount of Bitcoin, let's say, if you don't have to spend this amount and you can just keep it, even if it's not getting more and more, it would be better to make it in a way that it's getting more. But even if it's not getting more, the value of this asset is so much increasing every year. I told you 60% on average, that this alone, if you managed not to spend any of it, will be very positive for you. So think about that. This is the main idea of a store of value, that you basically store it somewhere and the value will at least keep, the value will be at least stable. This is still true for gold, but for Bitcoin, this is even better. I hope you enjoyed my video today. If you want to have more information, of course, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you are notified when I do my new videos. So hit the bell icon. Also, let me know in the comments, are you preferring me to make this walk and talk videos? Do you want to have more of these other videos where I have my slides and do it? Or do you want to have a mix between both? I don't know. I do 3 times a week this walk and talk, and I do 2 times the other style. Let me know. And if you're really serious, if you, oh, there's a complicated word. If you're really serious about making money or protecting your wealth in this new age, head over to block7.io, join our community. It's brand new. You can join it. I am putting on some mini courses that are free for you. You will find all my PDFs, and we're doing a weekly Q&A, so you can ask me whatever you want. If you want to get deeper, I also have my courses there. At the moment, we have a course that is called Buy Low, Sell High. It's very intense. It's around 8 hours, and you will learn how you can actually manage to buy low and sell high without any emotions. So I see you in my next video. Take care. All the best. Save your value. Bye bye.